Hi, welcome back to Brooks's Bass Corner. Today I have an interview for you with Thunder's bassman, Mr. Chris Childs. This interview took place in January 2021 while the UK was in lockdown number 3 during the pandemic. With Thunder's new album All the Right Noises due out on Friday, March the 12th, it seemed like a good time to catch up with Chris to ask him what he'd been up to during the 12 months during the pandemic, the recording of the new album, what equipment and gear he'd been using during the recordings, his side projects, and 101 other things. If you enjoy the interview, please hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell so that you receive notifications when I post up new videos, and please give the video a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. If you have any comments regarding the video or the interview, leave them below and I'll come back to you as soon as I can. Also, in the description box below, you'll find a link through to Thunder's website where you'll be able to purchase the new album in a variety of different formats, and also you'll be able to find other merchandise relating to the band. Anyway, on with the interview. I hope you enjoy. So I started by asking Chris what he'd been up to since March 2020 when the pandemic started and the world went into lockdown.
Well, actually loads. It's bizarre because this is the longest I've gone without playing live, as I'm sure it is for you, since I was probably 15. It's very strange. The last show I did was on the Monsters of Rock cruise last February, which was literally just before it all kicked off. That was when there was some, I think it was there was a cruise ship somewhere with some people sort of quarantined on it. That was the start of it all, and we managed to get in just before that, just before it all kicked off. But we had Thunder got a backlog of live shows that have been recorded at various times, so I've just been going through mixing those. I've done 3 albums, I think, remotely. I did another Lone Rider album, which was very exciting, because obviously playing with Simon Kirke on drums is a big deal, because I've been a massive fan of his all of my life, really, and of the bass players that he's played with him. So that was fun to do. He did his stuff in his studio in wherever he is in America, New York or LA or wherever it is, sent it over and I played along to it, and then it all got mixed, and that's sounding really good. But yeah, I did those. I also did played on an album for a chap called Khalil Turk, who runs Escape Music. I've done that album. Various other bits and pieces of sessions. There was an old friend of mine from back in the Illegal Eagles days, Jeff Green. He's doing a prog album. I played on all the tracks on that, which was great fun, because I was Chris Squire for or as close as I can get to Chris Squire for a couple of hours, and that was brilliant. And all being well, I'm going to be mixing that in later on this year. And yeah, I've just various bits and pieces. As you say, I do a lot of mixing. I got a hold of some new software and hardware for my studio by a company called Softtube, and basically it's hardware that controls their software. So you basically have like a strip of a mixing desk as hardware, rather than having to do it from a mouse or the keyboard, and 10 faders as well. So it's more of a hands-on experience, and it's more like mixing on a desk. And it's bizarre because you do end up using your ears more rather than your eyes. When you're twiddling knobs rather than moving things on the screen, it does change the way you mix.
The new Thunder album All the Right Noises is ready and primed for release on Friday, March the 12th. The accompanying tour dates have been moved twice, but the band are itching to get this album out for their loyal fan base to hear.
Well, we're incredibly proud of it. I personally think it's some of the best songs that Luke's ever written. It just came out great. And there's a lot of people who have heard it have actually been saying it's possibly our best album. Which is that's big talk, that is. And I can honestly say, I mean, I can't really comment on the first 3, but I can say it's the best record we've made since I've been in the band. easy. Everything came together. We recorded it at Rockfield. We got Mike Fraser to mix it, and a guy called Ed Woods to master it. You know, all of the things we've learned over the past few albums, we put them all into effect, and it just came out great. And we had some great additional musicians playing on it. And the song, there were a few sort of raised eyebrows at the last album, Please Remain Seated. You know, there were a few people saying, well, that's it, you know, putting their slippers on, and it's all jazz and downhill from now on. Anyone who hears this album, I don't think there'll be a question in their minds. This is a rock album, and it's not only a return to form. I think it's one of the best records we've ever made. Luke never stops writing. You know, he's actually just done a solo album, which he played bass on himself. He's a surprisingly good bass player. It hurts me to admit it, but he is. You know, for a guitarist, he's a very good bass player. Yeah, so he's written that. He constantly writes. He's one of the most prolific writers I've ever worked with. You know, if you look at his the bulk of work that he's done over the years, it's insane. And he's writing for the next album already. And bear in mind that he not only does he write the 12 or 15 songs that end up on the album, there's probably 5 or 6 that get discarded every album. You know, and he writes for other people as well, and he's actually now started writing the next Thunder album. So he's incredibly prolific, the boy. He really is.
Thunder remain a live touring band and had live dates booked in to coincide with the launch of this album. At the time of the interview, Chris was understandably concerned that the tour dates, having already been moved from 2020 into 2021, were going to get moved again. And they were, into 2022. So was there any chance that the album might be delayed to coincide with the new tour dates? We
couldn't really. You know, it's been pushed back that far. It couldn't go any further. And it's, you know, records are largely of their time. You know, there's a lot of social commentary on this record. You know, Luke's been quite vocal about what's been going on in the world, and if you leave that too long, then it doesn't have the same kind of relevance that it might necessarily have. And apart from anything else, we're incredibly excited by this record, and we just want people to hear it. So, you know, we really didn't want to push it back any further. Yeah, the problem is all bets are off at the moment. You know, any plans that we might have made have all completely been scuppered or, you know, put on the back burner. There's no way of plotting a way forward at the moment. All we can do is do what we can do, and that's, you know, get the record out, hope people are going to buy it, which I think they will, and then get started on the next record. You know, give this one as much of a chance as possible. BMG, the label, have been absolutely brilliant. There's all kinds of stuff going on. They've been very proactive. They're very pleased with the record and very, very keen to make it as good as possible.
Chris is no stranger to the recording studio environment, of course. Prior to joining Thunder in 1996, he worked with various bands and artists as well as being a working session musician. So, how does he compare the old way of working with the new way of working in the digital age?
So it was 2-inch tape, and of course when you're recording on the tape, you only get a limited amount of goes at it, really, because the more you go over it, the more it degrades. And obviously drop-ins are down to the skill of the engineer. So you really had to be able to play well. You know, if you were going to drop in on something, it was gone. You know, you couldn't Control V and undo it. You know, it was there for good, and if you screwed it up, then you had to drop in again and get it right. And of course, mixing as well was a whole different thing. It was 24 tracks and maybe a few more if you were slaved up, but it also meant that everybody had a job on the desk. Everybody was sat there with a little bit of China graph and pushing up faders when your bit came along and hitting the mute button. So it was totally different when I first started working in studios. You can just literally record a note at a time now, but then, you know, if you could, you play through the whole track. You know, there's pros and cons. You used to spend as much time waiting for the tape machine to record, to rewind, as you did playing the bloody thing, you know. So there are, I don't know, I could never have done what I do now back then, because, you know, it was only like desks were massively expensive, tape machines were massively expensive, and all the outboard. Now you just get it all on a laptop, you know.
So to the inevitable question that all of us bass heads want to know: what basses, amps and effects did he use on the new album?
I'm still using the Fender gear in the studio, the Bassman 800 head, and I've 410 cab that I've been using a while. But I also used a 115 cab, so I had them both mic'd up. I used my ENIGMA pretty much on most of the songs. There was one where I used my trusty old Electromatic, Gresham Electromatic, which sounds amazing. Unfortunately, I'll never use it live because it's semi-acoustic, so, you know, you got all the, but I get it out in the studio whenever I can. And my other Sandberg, the California VM, which I've got really old strings on, I used for one of the tracks and played fingerstyle, which was actually the track that's popped up on Facebook, the teaser for that. A song called Don't Forget to Live Before You Die, and there was quite a lot of distortion on that as well. So that was, I approached that track completely differently to the way I play on normal Thunder songs. For a start, I didn't use a pick, and it was strange because it's short eights. It's dum 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 dum. Now, as you know, you probably usually stop notes like that, don't you, with your finger, with the left hand. Luke didn't want that. He wanted the note stopped with the right hand, which was really hard. Keeping them short, consistent, same volume, and but it sounds completely different. You should have a go at it next time to play, and it's so alien, but once I got my head around it, it really worked, and I found that I was digging in a lot more than I normally do, because when I'm playing fingerstyle, I normally play quite lightly, but this I was digging into it, and it was great. It was good fun to play. He writes all the bass lines and demos, and like when we get the demos, all the drums, all the vocals, all the guitar parts, all the keyboard parts, he's done them all. The bass line. If there's anything that I really feel I would like to add to it, I'll run it past him, and sometimes it will get past him, sometimes it won't, you know, because he does. It's not like he knocks out a bass line just to get the song down. He writes the line, and he writes the whole song, and the parts are all very integral to the song.
So 2021 marks Chris's 25th anniversary with Thunder, a band that at the time of joining he admits he didn't know too much about. So where did 25 years go, and what does he put the band's success down to?
Bloody hell. I've no idea, mate. Because it doesn't seem that long ago. It really doesn't. Yeah, no, November '96. You know what? There's never been a crossword. There's never been an argument, a crossword. There's never been any falling outs. It just works, and it's you know, it's down to a lot of things. It's down to the personnel, to people's various personalities. but everybody kind of knows what they have to do, and it makes it very simple. It's, you know, it's not hard making music, is it? It's a joyful thing to do, and if you're making it hard, you're doing something wrong. But we don't, you know, every part of it, every part of the process of recording, of touring, of rehearsing, of traveling, it's easy because we get on well and we enjoy what we do. It's the best job in the world. Yeah, I mean, you know, people say about family, but they've become like my family. You know, we've been through a lot together. We really have. And you know, they're probably the closest friends I have. For a bunch of numbnuts, they're all right.
Chris has several side projects that he works on when Thunder aren't recording or touring. You can see him gallivanting around the UK and Europe with the Ultimate Eagles tribute band, and this has led to a new project, The Reserve, with band members from the Ultimate Eagles.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's pretty much all. It's Chris Wright and Michael Lawrence. They've written a load of songs, and the plan is to just make them songs that we love. Like it's all the best stuff from the 70s, you know, from 70s rock. And they're doing it via crowdfunding, I believe. So yeah, it was something, because obviously everything that we had was cancelled. Every single show for last year and this year has been cancelled. So we had to try and do something, but it was their little child. They've put it all together. I just went and played on the record, and had great fun doing it. I got to say, they're astonishingly good musicians. You know, Reese the drummer. He's only a young lad, but Christ, can he play? You know, he's got a very old head on young shoulders, and this is the thing. We obviously, with the Eagles tribute band, we just play the tunes, but when you get to hear what they can actually do, you know, Chris is a very accomplished guitarist and a great singer as well, and it's going to be exciting. I hope it all comes to fruition, because it has the possibility to be a really good album.
Prior to the pandemic and over the past 12 months of lockdowns, Chris has maintained his bass recording skills by offering remote bass sessions from home. I was keen to know what he thought his unique selling point was as a bass player.
It's not anything new. I've been doing this for a long while. People have been sending me tracks to play on at home. You know, there are a lot of advantages to doing it this way. Obviously, it keeps the overheads down. You don't have to go into studios. If you're in different countries, which happens quite regularly. I just did an album where it's a Lebanese band living in Canada. You know, so you can't get more sort of disparate than that. But I just decided it was something I've been thinking about for a long while, and obviously this year I had a bit of time on my hands to set up the website. So yeah, I obviously I have the gear, I have the basses all here, so it's an obvious sort of progression really. If we can't get into studios and people are recording more and more at home, then why not? My style of playing, I guess, and my interpretation of songs. You know, I can, if somebody wants me to play a part that they've written in my, it's just in the way I play it, because obviously, like Luke, he plays bass, but he plays bass like a guitarist. You know, he doesn't play bass quite like a bass player. And you can never really reproduce what a bass player does, you know, with software. There's too many variables. It's not only timing, it's feel, it's almost the inconsistencies that make it sound good. So yeah, there's you know, there's my style of playing, but also there's my interpretation. If somebody wants me, if they just want to give me a rough idea of what they want, and then I'll come up with a line. And obviously, you know, I've been doing it a long while. I've made a lot of records, so there's a lot of experience there. you know, going back to Andy Summers and Go West and Helen Terry, Colin Blunstone, then Jericho. I don't know.
Many of you will know that Chris started using Sandberg basses a number of years ago, and this led to him designing his own instrument, the ENIGMA, back in 2017. So what was the thinking behind this instrument?
Well, a few years back, I got involved with a guy called Alan Greensaw, who's a distributor for Sandberg in the UK. And unfortunately, his warehouse is not too far away from where I live, and every time we went over there, I ended up coming away with a different bass. So I had a couple of Sandbergs, which they are, if you've never played them, you have to give them a go. They're possibly the best made basses I've ever played. They're just great. And I just came up with well, the bass I had, the California VM, it was a lovely looking bass. It was a natural wood with a like a pearl fingerboard, but it didn't look very rock and roll. So I started looking at the various designs they had, and they got a thing called a 48, which looked a bit like a Thunderbird, but it had got Go Faster stripes on it. I really liked the look of that, and I said to Alan, I wonder if Holger would be up for doing a slightly different design. Oh, I wonder if he'd do me a signature bass. So it was literally, and I said, well, ask him. So I did, and he said, yeah, I like the idea, we'll do that. And Holger Stoniak is the guy who owns Sandberg. It's a very, very small company, low volume, high quality, based in Germany. Because I really like the sound of the VM, which is it's in the bridge position, it's a Music Man style humbucker pickup. In the neck position, it's a split precision style pickup. It made it a really, really big, aggressive sound. So I wanted that. Also, the paint job, really. I had a lot of ideas when I was putting it together, but obviously not all of them are going to be cost effective. You know, there had to be a trade-off between what I would like to have seen on it and people actually being able to afford to buy it, because it's great making a bass that costs 5,000 quid. You're going to sell 2 or 3. People aren't going to be interested. So there had to be the fine line between getting what I'd like to see on it and then making it actually affordable. It's a really good all-rounder. I kind of designed it as a rock bass, but it's got a lot more to it than that. But fingerstyle, it works really, really well. But you can really dig in with a pick, and it's all the notes are there. And that's the thing about Sandberg basses that I've always said. You always get the fundamental. The meat of the sound of the note is always there in the Sandberg, regardless of how you play it.
Back in the late 1970s and early 80s, Chris had some involvement with a small fledgling bass amplification company out of Essex. You might have heard of them. They're called Trace Elliot. Tell us more, Chris.
Well, in the early days of Trace Elliot, they were in a little shop in Romford, which used to be a lawnmower shop. And Trace Elliot was originally a PA company, and it was run by a guy called Fred Friedline, and a friend of mine, a guy called Stuart Watson, who's an absolute genius, designed a lot of the amps for the PA company, designed and built. And Fred decided that this was late 70s, when bass gear, you had Sun, Ampeg, and acoustic, and that was kind of it. And Fred decided that he wanted to build the best bass amp in the world. So he did. Stuart designed it, and it started off as a GP11, which I'm sure just about every bassist in the world has had. The original, and it's funny because I can't find them anywhere. The original Trace Elliot was a combo, but it was the biggest combo you ever saw. It was it had the GP11 in the front, a power amp in the back at the top. It stood about 5 foot tall. It had a flared 12 at the top, a 15 and an 18. And it was the heaviest, biggest thing you ever saw in your life. And the weird thing is, I've never seen them. They've never come up. To give you an idea what size it was, they had that as one option, then they had an 8x10 as the other option. So imagine an 8x10 as a combo with the amp on the top, and that was the original Trace Elliot. But I mean, they were taken up. Mark King used them in the early days. Susie Quattro, Jack Bruce. A lot of people used them because they were very big, they were very loud, and it was all sort of military grade components. You know, they were kind of unbreakable. And the weird thing was, we had in this ex-lawnmower shop, and I'll tell you a funny little story. There was a guy came in one day, and it was the front of the shop was the bass center. It was the original bass center, which there was run by a guy called Alan Morgan, and he opened up one in Los Angeles. So it was full of basses, full of very, very expensive basses. And the guy came in, stood there, looked around, and said, you don't sell lawnmowers then? And Alan just said, no, I'm sorry, we don't sell lawnmowers anymore. But yeah, we had a room upstairs, tiny little room, and Rob Green rented this room off of Fred, and he was just kind of playing about with these molds and with carbon graphite molds, and he was making these basses, and you know, not really sure what was going on up there. It was kind of, you know, kind of a little sort of mad scientist type place. And that's where Status started. And in the early days, I had a Series 2 5-string headless, and I'm not sure which one. It was a fretless headless as well. But unfortunately, they both kind of disappeared in one divorce or another, as you do. You know, they ended up paying for something. And I've always wanted to replace it. So the start of the year, I just thought, right, what the hell? I'm gonna get myself another Status. And I love it. You know, it was just to replace the one that I lost, which I really wish I'd never got rid of. You know, if ever I've learned anything, it's never sell any basses, because you always wish you don't, regardless of how bad or good they are. Just keep them all.
So if you've enjoyed this interview, please hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell so that you receive notifications when I post up new videos, and please give the video a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If you've got any comments about the interview, leave them below, and I'll come back to you as soon as I can. I'll leave you with Chris to tell you what he's going to be up to once the pandemic is over and the lockdown is lifted. Look forward to seeing you here again on Brooks's Bass Corner.
Yeah, well, the main thing obviously is the Thunder album. As a, you know, we're itching for people to hear it. That's one of the most frustrating things. Is we know people are going to love it, and it works incredibly well live, because what we did, we went back in the studio and recorded us playing it live as kind of additional tracks, and it just, every track just worked great. So we can't wait to get out and play it live. That's going to be like plan A. As far as any other projects go, a good friend of mine, Nigel Hopkins, who's an astonishing keyboard player, he keeps on about doing a prog album, which I'd really like to do, because I like playing a bit of prog. I do. It's fun. Yeah. Well, do you know what, on Jeff Green's album, I used my Enigma, and that's got a bit of Rickenbacker about it. It has. It's got that clang. Mate, it's been a pleasure. It's lovely to see your face again. Lovely to see you, Mike. See you soon, mate.